Gold. It's always held this, like, what's the word? Allure. This promise of riches.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what happens when that promise, that shimmer of gold, turns into something much darker, when it fuels conflict, tears communities apart? That's what we're diving into today.
Yeah, heavy stuff.
Enga Province, Papua New Guinea. Home to the Porgera gold mine, one of the biggest in the world. But it's not just the gold that defines this place. There's a history here, a complex and often really, really tragic history. And that's what we're going to unpack. We've got a YouTube video, tough to watch, honestly.
Yeah.
It shows the human cost of what's happening, families fleeing into the jungle, children caught in the crossfire.
It's heartbreaking, and it speaks to those deeper issues you mentioned.
Exactly. So, I mean, where do we even start with this? Tribal warfare, high-powered weapons, illegal mining.
Well, I think it's important to remember that conflict in Enga province isn't new. It predates the gold rush, even.
Right.
You've got these long-standing tensions between different tribal groups, often stemming from, competition over scarce resources, land, water.
And then you throw gold into the mix.
Exactly. It acts as an accelerant. It exacerbates those existing tensions. Suddenly, the stakes are even higher.
And more dangerous, too, right? I mean, we're seeing high-powered weapons in the hand of these groups now. Where are they even getting those?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? There are a lot of theories. Some say they're coming in from across the border. Others point to corruption within the police or military. It's likely a combination of factors.
It's a mess.
Yeah.
And it's easy to point the finger at illegal mining, right?
Sure, it's an easy target.
But then we heard from, what was her name? Krista.
Krista Koala.
Right, Krista Koala. She had a really interesting point about, how artisanal mining, that's basically small scale, often informal mining, has been a part of life in Enga for generations. It's how some families survive. So it's not as simple as just saying, shut it all down.
Absolutely. There's a real danger in oversimplifying the narrative. You can't just erase generations of history and tradition. And it's important to remember, this isn't just some abstract conflict we're talking about. There are real people caught in the middle of it.
And that's what really got to me in that video, seeing those kids. What kind of future do they have in all of this? And speaking of those caught in the middle, we have to talk about the Porgera gold mine itself.
It's a behemoth. Or it should be, at least, one of the world's top gold producers, billions of dollars in potential revenue. But the constant conflict, it throws everything off track.
Right, because who wants to invest in a mine that's constantly at risk of being shut down, or worse?
Exactly, and it creates this vicious cycle, right? The mine shuts down, people lose their jobs, they turn to illegal mining out of desperation, the violence escalates, and on it goes.
It's tough to see a way out, honestly. And then you've got the pandemic thrown into the mix.
Right. Think about it. Royalty payments halted, economic hardship increasing. It was a perfect storm.
It's no wonder things have escalated to this point. I mean, you could hear the desperation in Don Poy's voice. He's a local MP, by the way. He's calling for Australian intervention, saying it's the only way to stop a full-blown catastrophe.
Yeah, his words really highlight the sense of urgency and desperation on the ground. But foreign intervention, it's always a delicate issue.
Right, because what happens when you bring in outside forces? Do they really understand the nuances of the situation?
Exactly. There's always a risk of making things worse, of further entangling outside actors in a conflict that's already incredibly complex.
So, I mean, what's the answer then? What can actually break this cycle of violence?
There's no easy solution, no magic bullet. It has to be a multi-pronged approach.
Okay, so what does that look like?
Well, first and foremost, you have to address the root causes. That means tackling poverty, creating sustainable economic opportunities, especially for young people. And then there's the issue of the weapons.
Yeah, got to get those off the streets.
Absolutely. Stricter border controls, cracking down on corruption, those are crucial steps. But it can't just be about force. You need to address the demand side, too. Why are people so quick to resort to violence? What other options do they have?
About giving them a path forward, a sense of hope.
Exactly. And that's where things like community-based conflict resolution initiatives come in.
Like what Krista was talking about.
Exactly. Bringing people together, building trust, finding solutions that work for everyone.
She really emphasized the impact this is all having on children. It's hard to hear.
It's the saddest part of all of this. Kids are the innocent victims, robbed of their childhoods, their education. It's hard not to feel overwhelmed.
Yeah, it is.
But we can't give up hope. We have to keep asking ourselves, what can we do as individuals, as a global community, to support peace in Enga province? How can we help ensure that the wealth from those gold mines benefits everyone, not just a select few?
That's a powerful question, a question I think we all need to sit with.
I agree.
And with that, that wraps up our deep dive for today.
Until next